All right, everyone get ready, because today we are going deep on a moment that totally changed the world, like seriously changed everything.
Yeah.
The fall of the Berlin Wall.
Yeah, big one.
Especially for our listeners out there, getting ready for those UPSC exams, those international relations folks.
Oh, yeah.
This is something you got to know.
Yeah, this is going to be a big one for them.
But honestly, even if you're not facing an exam, this event, I mean, it's just huge, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Berlin Wall, talk about a powerful symbol of a world that was split in two, right? And when
Right.
it came down in 89, wow.
It's one of those things you wish you could have been there for.
Oh, to be a fly on the wall.
Right. Imagine that scene. It's November 9th, 1989. People are just like flooding through these checkpoints that they just opened up. They're dancing on top of the wall. I mean, some people are even like chipping away at it.
Yeah, pieces of history.
It must have felt like the world was just totally changing right in front of them.
Absolutely.
This was more than just a party, right?
Oh, way more. I mean, we're talking about the Berlin Wall. It stood there for almost 30 years.
Wow.
It was like the physical representation of the Cold War.
Right.
This battle between the East and the West, communism versus, well, everything else.
Right.
And if you were stuck in East Germany, I mean, that wall, that was a barrier. It wasn't just concrete. It was keeping you from freedom.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to even imagine what that must have felt like.
It was a very closed-off way of life.
Yeah. So, okay, so it's way more than just bricks and mortar. This was about escaping like a whole system.
Oh, absolutely. And here's where it gets really, really interesting. You see, the fall of the Berlin Wall, it wasn't just this one thing happening in isolation. Think of it like the big finale, the climax of a much bigger story that was unfolding all across Eastern Europe.
Okay.
I mean, you had Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, all these places. They were going through their own upheaval, their own revolutions, each one chipping away at the control of communism in their own way.
So it's like one domino hitting the next and the next and the next.
Yes, exactly.
But okay, for the UPSC folks out there, how did this huge domino effect actually like change, the global power structure? Because that's the real, that's what we really need to understand.
That's the heart of it. You're right. You're right. And here's the thing. The fall of the Berlin Wall, it didn't just like end a divided Germany, okay? It basically set off a chain reaction that led to the Soviet Union itself, the whole thing collapsing just 2 years later. Think about that.
It's crazy.
Superpower gone.
Just poof.
Like rearranging the entire
The
chessboard.
world's biggest power
Yeah.
just gone.
Gone.
Wow, that is mind-boggling.
I know. And that's precisely why historians, they put 1989, that year, right up there with those other massive turning points in history.
Right.
Like the French Revolution or when World War I kicked off.
Yeah, I mean, our source material draws the same parallel.
It's huge.
It puts it all in perspective. But let's, break it down a little bit more. What exactly made 1989 so important?
All right. So think about the chain reaction. Okay. Germany becomes one country again, reunited. The Warsaw Pact, which was this big military alliance of communist countries, gone, dissolved. And the Cold War, like officially over. It's like everyone was holding their breath for decades, and suddenly, boom, everything changes.
Okay, so UPSC folks, you better be listening. This is the stuff that you need to know to really ace those essays on international relations, right?
Oh, yeah.
New alliances pop up, the European Union gets bigger, and the U.S., well, they're suddenly the only superpower left.
The big dog on the block.
We are talking about a total makeover of the entire international system.
Like complete overhaul. It's wild, right? How something that seemed, I don't know, like a local thing could cause such huge changes everywhere.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just about, who had the power on the world stage. The fall of the Berlin Wall, it really sparked some major, ideological debates.
Oh, right. Like how people thought about the world, what they believed in, all that.
Exactly. Like you might have heard of that end of history theory, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was mentioned in the stuff we read.
Okay, cool.
It sounds, I don't know, kind of dramatic.
Oh,
Like people seriously thought history just stopped in 1989.
No, not literally. But there was this feeling, this like sense of, okay, communism is done, right? Liberal democracy, it won. That's it. And there was this political scientist, Francis Fukuyama,
Okay.
who was like, this is it. This is the final form of human society. We've reached the end point.
Whoa, bold statement.
Right, like humanity reached the finish line, at least, in terms of like political ideas and how we organize ourselves.
Pretty big claim.
Huge claim. And of course it caused a ton of debate.
makes sense.
But it shows you how optimistic people were back then. Maybe a little naive even, but it helps us see like what the mood was after such a, I don't know, monumental event, you know?
Yeah, I can see that. Like after such a big change, people are looking for, I don't know, some kind of answer about what it all means.
Exactly.
But did everyone really buy into this whole end of history idea?
Good point. I mean, our sources, they did mention some other points of view.
Right, like maybe not everyone was convinced.
Exactly. Some people, they were like, hold on, the fall of the Berlin Wall, sure, it was a big deal, but was it really that big?
Like, it wasn't the only factor.
Right. They're thinking the U.S., they were already on their way to becoming the top dog globally.
So for them, it was more like these big long-term historical trends were already happening anyway.
Exactly. Like the Berlin Wall falling, it was part of that, but not the whole story. They might even point to, you know, Russia, how they've been getting more powerful again lately.
Yeah.
As proof that 1989, it didn't like permanently knock them out of the game.
Interesting. So multiple ways to see it.
Oh, yeah. And for our UPSC listeners, this is gold.
Oh, okay. How so?
Well, when you're writing those exams, you can't just, you know, spit back facts. You got to show you can analyze, think critically.
Right. Show you understand the nuances, the different sides of the story.
Exactly. So knowing these different ways of interpreting 1989, that's key.
Okay, so it's not just about what happened. It's about how we understand it, the debates around it.
Absolutely. And there's another really interesting way to look at 1989. One scholar, Philip Bobbitt, he said that the fall of the Berlin Wall, it wasn't just the end of the Cold War. It was the end of something much bigger. He called it the Long War.
The Long War. Okay, that sounds intense. What's that all about?
So Bobbitt, he argued that basically from the late 1700s, like way back, humanity was fighting this massive struggle, this long war, to figure out what is a nation state? What's the best way to organize ourselves? And he saw, you know, liberalism, fascism, communism as the main players in this fight.
Wow, okay, so 1989 with communism collapsing, it wasn't just, you know, the end of one fight, the Cold War, but the end of this, like, centuries-long struggle over systems of government, over ideology.
Yeah, that's his argument. And it's pretty thought-provoking, right? Like, it makes you see 1989 and its place in history in this whole new light.
Totally. Like, it's amazing how one event can have so many different layers of meaning, how people can interpret it in such different ways.
It's incredible. And it shows us why it's so important to think critically about history. There's always more to dig into, more questions to ask.
Right, like there's always more to the story.
Always.
Speaking of questions, I'm curious, what about our listeners?
Yeah.
What really stood out to you? Was it, I don't know, the human side of it? All those people looking for freedom? Or maybe those huge changes on the world stage? Or even these crazy debates about the end of history and this long war? Whatever caught your attention, keep in mind, this is just the beginning, you know? There's so much more to learn about this whole period. I mean, think about those individuals who were like right in the thick of it, like Gorbachev, for instance.
Oh, yeah. Can't forget about him.
And his, you know, those policies, glasnost, perestroika.
Huge. Yeah. And what about the impact on all those different countries? I mean, every nation in the Eastern Bloc, they had their own journey going through all this change. It's a different story everywhere you look.
Right. And of course, there's all the new challenges that popped up, you know, after the Cold War. It wasn't like everything was suddenly perfect.
Definitely not. History keeps going, right?
So, UPSC folks, pay attention. This is prime essay material right here. You can have a whole interview question just on this. Knowing the players, understanding all the different ways people see it, being able to talk about what happened in the long run.
It's all connected.
Super relevant for those exams.
Oh, absolutely. But even beyond exams, I mean, understanding this time, it gives us like a framework for understanding, well, the world we live in now. All those forces that brought down the Berlin Wall, those ideas that people were debating back then, they're still shaping our world today.
It's a good reminder that what seems like it will last forever, it can change just like that. Just like that wall in Berlin came crumbling down, you know, those global power dynamics, they can totally shift suddenly. It makes you wonder, what seems totally unshakable today? What could change in the future that we don't even expect?
History is full of surprises.
That's for sure. So, there you have it, our deep dive into the fall of the Berlin Wall. We started with a divided city and ended up talking about a whole new world order. We got into some pretty thought-provoking stuff along the way.
We did.
I hope you found it as interesting as we did.
Yeah, and remember, this is just a starting point. Keep digging, keep asking questions, and never stop learning. There's a whole world of history out there waiting to be explored.
Absolutely. And if you liked what you heard today, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with your friends, especially those UPSC folks out there.
Spread the knowledge.
Until next time, keep those brains working.